My name's Fakey. I'm in Normal Village. We've been a band for about probably coming up on 2 years now. We're based in Leeds and we play a kind of jazzy alt-rock. My introduction to music was my 13th birthday. My mum bought me a very cheesy keyboard. I used to watch those YouTube tutorials where like the notes come down onto the piano. It's only recently that I started playing drums and stuff, but I started off playing keys on a cheesy kid's keyboard. As a band, we're actually quite bad at using social media. We kind of like only post if there's a gig, and then we kind of like go off the radar for a little bit. But it's more accessible nowadays to market yourself on social media with like TikTok and evolving forms of media. We find that we take quite an in-person approach. A lot of what we do is like spoken word. It's about making connections in person and stuff because we so rarely post. But when we do, we try and just post a picture of ourselves because people enjoy like seeing pictures of the people in bands. And then we put the poster for a gig or something on the next slide. It normally gains a reasonable amount of traction. But it's like I was saying, a lot of being in a modern day kind of music scene now, it's about knowing people and just speaking to them and kind of reinforcing that audience to come to your shows and stuff. But we do quite a terrible job of social media and we should probably do better. So when we first started, Paddy and Lucy, that's the guitarist and the bassist, they like had a background of musical performance in other bands, and they just kind of started playing with me in college one day. And we kind of made like, it was like especially between me and Paddy, it was like a musical connection before a personal one. Because I didn't know him that well, but I was just like dying to play with him because I just thought he was so cool. But as for like finding people to play with, it was really easy because we were playing together before we actually like gave it a name and started a band. We got his first gig before we had like a set list ready and stuff because we were very fortunate with Monomyth Records. Bob Brazil came into one of his practice rooms at Beckett and he was just speaking to us, saying he had a gig with, he was putting on a gig for a band that was like us and we should get ourselves gig ready. But we were just kind of jamming and stuff and then thought, yeah, you know, let's put a name on it. Like, so the kind of natural connection was already there. But after that, when we moved from being a 3-piece to a 4-piece, it was actually quite hard to find someone to play like lead guitar for us. Then we met Rowan, he was his first lead guitarist, and he joined in, he got stuck in. And then unfortunately, he had to move back up north, so we had to find a new lead guitarist. And if it weren't for me already like knowing people, like we already knew Spike, who's now his new lead guitarist, it would have been a nightmare finding someone that like fit so close because it genuinely is about the personal connection as well. You can't force it in a band, especially if you're like performing as a unit. You want a coherent show. And if like, I don't know, I think you can see if you don't know the people that you're playing with. I think the connection's got to be there. So if we didn't know Spike already, it would have been so hard because there are so many people that play instruments. There's so many people that could potentially fill that role, but you don't want to cycle through people. You want the right one. We play quite a few kind of like styles of music when we perform. I remember when Rome was still in the band, we had this like one super cheesy like Bossa Nova song that would play, and people loved it because it's such a gentrified like version of Bossa Nova composition. So it was so easy for people to like get into. But there are bands in Leeds that like have such a specific style of music. It's quite unique, and I sometimes do think when watching them like how will you bring this to the next step. Not a lot of people are like trying to do that though. They're very comfortable with like having a creative project and pushing it like that. But for us, I think we play like a safe enough style of music to kind of like keep drawing a crowd in, because sometimes it can be quite like complex in its writing, but I think we keep it quite accessible, and it's also like it's quite impressive to watch. Like Lucy's parts, they're like both visually and audibly impressive because, you know, she's going everywhere all over the neck, and it's a complete spectacle to like watch her play. So it's almost kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of got like a bit of a showing off element. We play like hard music. I don't think my parts are that hard really, but it's quite impressive to watch. And it's also, it's quite a style of music that's quite popular at the moment. Like if you look at bands that have come on like a big uprise, especially recently, like Yard Act, Squid, Black Midi and stuff, they're playing quite different music. I think that kind of crowd is a lot more common nowadays, like that kind of like post-punky, new wave. And I think kind of, not catering, I think kind of like delivering our music to that audience is going to be like the best step in kind of growing as crowd. My advice would be, if you're not already playing like in a group and you want to find a group to play with, find people that kind of have similar but not identical preferences in music to you. Expand your horizon a little bit. Start kind of jamming with them. Get that connection down. You know, I don't drink, but go for a pint or maybe a coffee and just start speaking to people. I think in Barnsley, it's so like, it's a lot slower here because there's not as big of a scene. But if you look at Leeds or you look at Manchester, you can get a first gig, not anywhere. You can get a first gig like pretty much any time. You can get a debut show. You just have to be ready for it. That's all it is. Get to know what you have to bring to a gig and stuff, because I remember when we started out, man, oh my God. I remember we started out, I was running around venues being like, have you got a clutch? Have you got a kick pedal? Have you got, sometimes I still do it, but you just have to know like what you have to bring, what time you have to be there. Don't be late. Just get to know people in the scene. That's all it is. Make sure you're selling yourself, but don't kind of get in people's faces about it. Just be a nice guy. Anyone can do it. You just gotta be a nice guy.